Start your business for the freedom of time. Now you're tired of the hustle and grind. There's gotta be a better way. It's time to listen to Chill and Prosper. Welcome to Chill and Prosper. You're ready to chill and prosper with Denise Duffield-Thomas.
Hey gorgeous, it's Denise here. Welcome to this week's episode of Chill and Prosper. We're talking about scarcity thinking, manifesting bills, and just what to do when you feel scarce about money or you feel scared about money. And actually, I got a couple of questions that came in around this. So one from Natalia and an anonymous one too. And the first question is, what do you do when you unconsciously drift back to scarcity mindset? And first of all, I want to say, Natalia, and to also everyone listening, that this is a really normal thing to have happen, especially when there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. So obviously we're in a period of real global turbulence. We really are, politically, environmentally, economically. It is what it is. And it is a time where we really have to be gentle with ourselves around that, because it is easy to slip into that scarcity thinking, even if in our environment we're actually okay. And that's because we're empathetic people, of course, right? And we feel bad when there are bad things happening to people. Like, this is just a normal, natural human experience for anyone who has a heart, right? And the more you find out about the world, and of course we're living in a world of 24-hour news cycles, we can see things that we hadn't seen before. So there's always been war, there's always been famine, there's always been bad things happening around the world. But now we see it 24/7, and I'm not saying ignore it, because that obviously doesn't change anything, but we have to sometimes separate, like, what is mine to worry about myself and what is empathy for someone else's situation. Because the problem is, if it starts to bleed into our mindset, and then it has an impact on our ability to make money, that's not helping anybody. That's absolutely not helping anyone. So what do you do? Okay, so that's one example of where it might be coming from, just the news life. But it also could be coming from family, partners, friends. And I find this is true no matter what's happening in the world, right? Because some people, it wouldn't matter if there's massive prosperity, they're going to feel scarce, they're going to feel poor. And that is just true of some people's personality types. It can be a very accumulator, that is a particular money archetype. Sometimes accumulators, if they're not feeling safe, they will absolutely go into scarcity mode. And then it can be catching, right? Or it could be just something that's inside you. Okay, so what do you do? First of all, sometimes it's good to look at the actual numbers, right? Are you scarce, or are you just feeling that way? Okay, and you might think, what's the difference? Some people, it doesn't matter how much they have, they feel like it's not enough. Okay, and as I said, this is a very accumulator thing, but even sometimes people who have a ruler money archetype, it can feel like it's never enough. I have to do more. I have to do more. So sometimes actually looking at your numbers can really help with that. And in Money Bootcamp, if you guys are in there, we talk about tracking your income, and not just your money, but tracking value that comes into your life too. So if a friend buys you coffee, you can put that on your tracker spreadsheet. And sometimes that really helps to see how abundant you truly are. Because I find that if something bad happens in the last couple of days of the month, some people will assume that's how it was for the whole month. We're very much like present creatures, and it's like, I feel scarce now, so everything must be scarce. And to be able to go back and look and go, actually, no, like, I have enough money. So whether that's looking at your bank account, looking at your savings account, and like giving yourself the data to be like, I'm okay, that can really help. Another thing that can really help is to limit your exposure to negativity for a little while. And this isn't about like putting your blinkers on, not being informed about what's happening in the world. It's just that what is like in your best interest to know about, and how much should you know about. Okay, so I sometimes would get very like almost hyper vigilant about being up to date with the news. And that meant I was consuming a lot of podcasts, a lot of news, a lot of Twitter, and all very negative kind of stuff. And then especially at night when you're trying to get to sleep and you're like, oh, let's shine a light on my face containing all the news of the world and all this negative stuff. And sometimes I need to protect myself from that, especially if I'm trying to do something else that's going to create good in the world, like writing a new book or creating a new program or teaching something or marketing. I need to limit my exposure to the negative stuff so I don't take that on as all the reality, right? Because then you can get very down, you can procrastinate, you can, feel like your stuff isn't important. So like a couple of months ago, I was like, okay, I really need to focus on some other stuff. So I unsubscribed from some of those podcasts. I still find out about the news. It's just, I don't need to hyper fixate on it as much as I was. And I find that just giving myself a little bit of exposure really helps me to feel much more positive in our other areas of my life. Okay, so think about what you're exposing yourself to and what messages are coming up again and again, particularly if it's stuff about the economy, right? Because in times of recession, you can still make money. You absolutely can. And you can start to feel like the collective is your experience. And of course, that's not just like going, oh, well, I've got my stuff, so screw everyone else. But it's like, if you can find a way to, make your own money, find a way to pivot in any economy, then absolutely do that, right? So you're not contributing to the problem. You're taking care of yourself so you can take care of other people. And I think that's just so important to focus that, right? And to think, okay, I'm not going to listen to doom and gloom stuff. I'm going to listen to people who are pivoting, who are succeeding in any market. Now, when you're doing that, sometimes it feels like it's so pervasive. And you might just be like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, kick my partner to the curb, not see my friends and family, not listen to anything. And it's like, no. Sometimes you can crowd things out. Okay. So what can you control in that situation? You can control what you're consuming. So you can control your social media feed to a certain extent because the algorithm will only show you more of what you interact with. So that for me actually is not about like necessarily following accounts that are like, oh, abundance. I actually love following things that have got nothing to do with money as well. So it could be stories about good things happening in the world, stories about dogs, following a lot of people who make things and who are creative and who are prolific creators, people who are doing good in the world, because that restores my faith, right? That there are good things happening in the world and not to feel guilty about also wanting to feel joy. Okay, so you can crowd that out with your social media accounts, with what you're watching, what you're listening to. So actually last night we started watching The Bear and I was like, this is really good, but it's also quite stressful. It's a lot of stress, because they're running a kitchen and it's very stressful and they're talking about money and it's very scarce and stressful. And so I always try and chase it with just something that's really easy to watch, like something nice and friendly or just nice and easy. So then that's not the last message I see before I go to bed. Of course, it's a little bit trickier if there are other people in your life who are talking negatively about money. So if it's friends, I think this can be a really good boundary thing anyway, is that there are some friends who are Debbie Downers and that they will always find the negative in something. And so you can make sure that you limit the way that you hang out with those friends. So it could be that instead of sitting around having a coffee and talking, you do something side by side, like you go for a walk or you go to the movies or you do something that's a bit more active. So then you don't have to go into topics that might feel a little bit like a minefield for you. Or it's also okay to just limit your exposure to those people for a while. And what I mean for a while is, especially if you're starting something that makes you feel a bit vulnerable, a little bit scared, have a little bit of self-doubt and imposter syndrome, if you can be really protective of your energy in those moments, it's really going to help to actually do the things that you need to do that are a bit scary, right? If it's family members or your partner, that can be a little trickier. Okay. So I do have some tips for that, because it's actually something that comes up a lot when people come into my world or come into Money Bootcamp, and they'll say, yeah, it's all well and good for me, Denise, to change some of these things, but what about my partner? How can I change their views on money? Okay. So it's an important one in this scarcity mindset piece. Okay. So let's have a quick break and we'll talk about it in a sec.
It's your time and you're ready for the next step. It's your time and you're ready for the next step. It's your time and you're totally ready for the next step. So many times we are waiting for the perfect moment, for all of the green lights, or for someone else to tap us on the shoulder and say, you're ready. But it has to come from inside you, and you can declare yourself ready now. Put your hand on your heart and try it with me. It's my time and I'm ready for the next step. If you know deep in your heart, even if you're scared, that you're ready to let go of some of your money fears and finally profit from your skills and talents, it's time to get to work. Your next step is to come and join us in Money Bootcamp. You can work with me as your money mindset mentor and join our beautiful community so you can really give yourself permission to make money and change the world. Click below to find out more, but don't wait any longer. Come and join us today. We're ready for you and it's your time and you're ready for the next step.
Hi. Okay, so what to do when your partner has a scarcity mindset, and how do you even know, right? So I find that one of the quickest ways to see if someone has a scarcity mindset is how they talk about money in general. So are they saying things like, oh, another day, another dollar, or there's always more bills to pay, and really speaking negatively about money? And you might think, like Mark and myself, we've always been on the same page around money, and it's not true at all. When we first started dating, the way he said money was just so full of fear and lack and scarcity. And, he'd always say, oh, we don't have enough money. We don't have enough money. And he would even look in the cupboard and say, there's nothing to eat. And for me, that would just trigger me so much, because I would think, like, there's so much food in there, and to say we have nothing really made me feel really poor and destitute and really scared. And so we had a conversation about it where I would say, hey, look, I'm doing all this stuff to help with my money mindset. When you say things like that, it actually makes me feel really scared, like a scared little girl. And I came at it from a place of not trying to teach him and say, oh, Denise says, or this book says, which some people do, but to actually tell him how and why it impacted me. And that takes a little bit of self-awareness sometimes about your own money mindset and what your triggers are and what some of your experiences are around money. So to be able to ask him and just say, hey, look, please don't talk about money that way. It really makes me feel scared, without really making him wrong. The next thing is to ask and understand where they're coming from when it comes to their money mindset, because most of everyone's has come from our past experiences, sometimes really negative, sometimes traumatic experiences, sometimes things that we didn't know, because that's just how it always was in our family, right? And until you really look at it and dig into it and really connect the stories, it's not so obvious to some people. So you can sit down from a place of curiosity and ask your partner, like, what was your first job? Who earned the money in your house? What are some of your money memories? Did you get pocket money? And it will be really fascinating, some of the things that will come up, because if you're doing your own money mindset work, you will see the patterns arise, right? And you'll start to be able to go, oh, have you thought about this? Or, wow, that's really interesting that happened. Like, do you think that's why, you do this? Like, so they might have been raised by really frugal parents who lost money or went bankrupt. And I see this a lot, right? Then on the flip side of it, then they're like hoarders, or they're like holding on to every penny because of that previous experience. So being able to understand that and have compassion for their experience, but also just have a bit of a shared language around this concept of money mindset and money blocks. can be really powerful too. The other thing that Mark and I started to do is that we would like kind of just have family mottos, have affirmations that kind of acted as a bit of a pattern interrupter for us. So instead of saying, you know, we can't afford that, we would we started saying this funny thing of like, lucky we're rich. And we started saying this years before we made any money, but it was kind of a bit of a, like, it was a pattern interrupter to make us kind of laugh. So it'd be like, oh, like the cars need new tires. And instead of going, oh, why does this always happen to us? You know, can't believe this happened. To be like, lucky we're rich, we can afford to buy new tires. And it was immediately snapped us out of that thinking. And the truth is, most people listening to this, like, we are very wealthy in the grand scheme of the planet. You know, if we've got water that comes out of a tap, if we've got food to eat, and yes, there will be times that you feel scarce or you have to budget or you don't have the money to do the things that you want to do. But when you can instill a feeling of gratitude into your family of like, we are so lucky, we're so abundant, that can really shift things around as well. Then some other things that I do when I love that this question at the start of the call from Natalia was, what do you do when you unconsciously drift back to scarcity mindset? And I think this is the unconscious bit, right? Is when we go on autopilot. And if you're not like regularly meeting up with a mastermind, for example, or a business coach, or going to conferences, if you're not in the rooms where people are talking about money mindset, you do unconsciously drift into a scarcity one. And I mean, we do 2 live calls at the end of the month for my money boot camp. And occasionally there'll be someone who goes, I haven't been to one of these calls for 2 years. And then at the end, they're like, I'm so happy I'm back in the room. Because immediately they start to think and remember and almost catalog all the ways that they've slipped out of some of these habits that we try and instill to people of like money tracking and upgrading your life and watching your language and all of these things. You forget about them until you're back in the room. And we always say to people as well, like, don't feel embarrassed if you left for a while, just come back in, you know. And the cool thing about it is that there is a bit of a muscle memory. When you start to do a lot of mindset work, you'll never go back to where you were before. Even if you unconsciously drift, you'll always find that you have a bit of a foundation and you can get yourself out of it quicker. So even though, yes, I am very abundant, I absolutely will go through periods of scarcity thinking or worrying, or, you know, I have a lot more investments, a lot more responsibility now than I did before. And that can sometimes feel heavy, right? So I'll get back into that space too. But I have a monthly kinesiology session. I'm doing my own calls with people. So I have to get back into my mindset. There are enough little anchors in to remind me. But when you don't have that, you can feel very adrift, right? So, you know, if you need to do work on this, come and join us in Money Boot Camp, because every day you'll be in that conversation. At the end of the month, you'll get those reminders. Make sure that if you have a business coach or a mentor, like, book in for those quarterly meetings. And sometimes I don't even know, I think I don't really need it. But when I'm there in the moment, I always think, oh, thank God I did this. I really did need that. I needed that tune up. Same with going to conferences, which I don't do a lot these days. I don't do a ton of travel. But when I do, I go, oh, that's the little shot of inspiration that I needed. When I see my mastermind buddies, I always come away feeling full of possibilities. So whatever you need to do, and then you think of your daily life as well. What little things can you put into your life to feel more abundant during the day? And that could be music. It could be like upgrading various parts of your house, feeling more abundant in the moment, and actually looking for those little things that are making you feel scarce, making you feel poor. And it could be something as simple as like a squeaky chair. And sometimes you have to upgrade and buy something new. Sometimes it's a little quick fix that you can do just to go, I'm not gonna have that problem anymore. I don't want to have that experience anymore. Upgrading your underwear. Look, it could be something really small that is just a visual or a kinesthetic reminder of I'm abundant, I'm abundant. And if you really want to take this, you know, to the next level, especially if there's something big that you're working on that you need a bit more of that, go all out. Like I've had periods where I've written on every single mirror in my house what goal I was working towards. I, changed my screensaver on every device there is, iPads, phones, TV screens, computers, phones, everything. So I'm consciously aware of what I'm manifesting at that time. I'll listen to motivational podcasts. I will, do my own work like EFT. That's a really important one too. And like, just throw everything at it, absolutely throw everything at it. Nothing is too small to do. And it all adds up. It all really adds up. I also personally love visualization. So I love doing guided meditations. I love doing ones for myself. If you're in Money Bootcamp, we've got a ton in the bonus section, by the way, of like inner child work and cord cutting and meeting your future self. All of those things can really help you build that belief that you might need to need a bit of a bolster on, right? And yeah, it really is. So I've got one final thought for you after the break, but hopefully those tips have really helped Natalia and everyone else, of when you just drift back into that scarcity mindset and things seem to come up that feel unfair, like you can get out of it at any time. All right, one final thought for you after this break. See you in a sec.
So I have done the Money Bootcamp, and I love there's so many things I could share, but one of the things I loved is the incremental upgrades and the idea that you're like, you start slow with the upgrades and it feels like it's going really slowly, and then all of a sudden it'll just be massive. And I just went, oh, okay, well, all right, let me do it. So the first thing I did was I got sunglasses, which I had a really beautiful pair of sunglasses like 8 years ago. And then one day I sat on them and I was like, that's it. Like, you're never getting any good sunglasses again. You don't deserve it because you just sat on this, and that's it. You're too responsible for it. So then I always had these crappy sunglasses, but I love sunglasses. So I got these sunglasses and I got 2 pairs. And actually the less expensive pair was an Anchor that I started having, because they're like rose gold and they just like make me feel like hot and like I got my shit together. And I've got this selfie of myself where every time I'm feeling a bit like wobbly, I'll look at that and be like, yeah, okay. So, I upgraded that and like just did the course, and then literally within probably six to 12 months at the very most, I think it was less than that, we bought the apartment next door. We have done an entire renovation of the whole place within a year, and it was like it started so small and then it just went like these massive opportunities came up that would never have been there before. So that's been incredible, and really just also like as a female, it never occurred to me that it's not a common thing to be like not only a breadwinner, but like running a company. And I was just like, oh, this is just what you do. And then just realizing there are so many things that you face that are not only you, like whether it be the tax thing or whether it be, oh, I can't make more money than like the male figures in my family, and like, just doing all that work to like see what's in the way, the negative consequences, has made a really big difference with that. So yeah.
Okay, welcome back. So I think my final thought here is it is always up to you, because you cannot control other people. You can't control your parents, your partner's mindset, your friends. You can't control the economy. You can't control like anything outside of yourself. And so you can only literally control what you think and feel about yourself. And sometimes it takes being a little bit delusional and it takes being a little bit like Pollyanna-ish, of going, I know the reality might not be great, but I'm going to try and feel good and do whatever you can to control that. And whether it's making sure you get enough vitamin D, or you go out for a walk, or you spend time with your dogs, or whatever it is for you, you can't let anyone else's money blocks permeate your own, because it is up to you to do it. And I definitely felt that in the early days. I'd be like, oh, I can't believe Mark's not on board with this money thing. And I was like, no, I'm going to be the one to do it. I really want it. I want to change things for our family and for our kids, and I want to change my life. And so it is up to me to do it. And instead of making that feel like a like being resentful about it, I felt really empowered. And then I was like, oh, good. None of that's going to stop me. The only thing that can stop me is me. And I just had to ignore everything else. And so that did mean there were some friends I didn't hang out with as much. I didn't start conversations with people who I knew would go into a rant about scarcity. I protected my energy. Okay. So it is that thing of like, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And you can be in your own corner and you can decide to be the one. Okay. And a little mantra for you is like, why not me? Why not me? And you can choose, and you can get out of it in a second. Okay. So layer those things in and give yourself permission to feel abundant, wealthy, and grateful in any circumstance. Lucky we're rich. Okay, thanks so much for listening. And I realized I didn't talk so much about the unexpected bills and fines, but I'll do that on another episode. I just wanted to close that loop just in case people are listening. And I will see you on another episode of Chill and Prosper. See you next week. Bye.
Start your business for the freedom of time. Now you're tired of the hustle and grind. There's gotta be a better way. It's time to listen to Chill and Prosper. Welcome to Chill and Prosper. You're ready to chill and prosper with Denise Duffield-Thomas.